Okay, so we're gonna make a pinch pot. In order to make a pinch pot successfully, I would suggest starting out with about the size of a baseball, a piece of clay the size of a baseball. If you wanna weigh it, it's about somewhere between 1 pound and 2 pounds. Once you ball this into a ball, you're gonna take your thumb and push it into the clay, into the center of the clay. Push all the way down, but not so far down that you're gonna punch through a hole through the bottom, but just push down enough that you're pretty close to the bottom. And then you're gonna start pinching. You're gonna pinch only at the bottom third of the clay. So if you break this into thirds, you really only wanna pinch at the bottom third of the clay to start with. This is super important because you don't wanna pinch the middle or the top and then it gets really tall and then you can't reach down to the bottom. The key to any pottery, but specifically pinch pot, is even and consistent walls. So once you pinch this bottom third and you just pinch and turn and pinch and turn and pinch and turn. You can take your time if you need to. It doesn't have to be rushed. But the key is even and consistent walls. So once you pinch this first third, when you move up to pinch the second third, you just want to match the consistency. You want the same thickness throughout the whole piece. So when you move up, match the consistency to what you already pinched. And then you just go around and pinch and pinch and pinch. One tip that I have for you is to hold the clay in your hand, because if you put it on the table, a lot of times the weight of the clay will flatten it out and leave a bottom that is really weighted, and it is really hard to get to the same consistency as the rest of the clay, the rest of the piece. So hold it in your hand, and that's gonna make the bottom a lot better. So you're just gonna pinch and move around and pinch and move around. And then you're going to move, once you've gotten that matched, you're going to move up to the very last part, and that's the rim. You're going to kind of pinch and match the same consistency just like with the rest of the piece. Pinch and move around, pinch and move around, and pinch and move around. Again, still holding this in your hand. You can always come back down and just check it to see if it's the same consistency. If it's not, come back down and pinch a little bit more. You really want to check this out before you get too tall and you can't reach it. All right, so now I have basically a successful pinch pot, but I'm not finished yet because the last step is to do the refining. This is going to be where you, because you've pinched it and it looks nice and it's even consistent walls, but it still has all of the indentions from your fingers while you've been pinching. So in order to get rid of those, you really need to kind of come back and use your finger and rub this against the clay against your thumb on the inside. So just again, take your time and work your way around, and move those tall parts of the lumps to the skinny parts of the lumps. So, and you can feel where it's you can feel the lumps in there, and you're really just trying to get rid of those. And not only does that get rid of it and get rid of the lumps and make it nice and consistent, but also the look of it is very clean. Stop. And you're just going to do this all the way around your piece. All right, and so the difference between a good, consistent piece of work and then a work that's full credit and an A work, full points, 100%, is this final step. You have to do this final step in order to make it nice and clean. And the other thing, so now you have, and you'll do that all the way around. For the purposes of this video and your time, I won't actually make it all the way around. And then also you're going to want to do is kind of fix this rim, because if you look at it at this point, it isn't necessarily even this way, and then the consistency this way is different thicknesses. So to get that all uniform, you want to support the wall with your finger and with your other finger rub this top part of it, and that'll kind of help level it out. When you do that, you'll end up with, and you'll do that all the way around. When you do that, you'll end up with this like ridge inside, which it's easy to get rid of just by taking your finger and pushing down and out and getting rid of that into the rest of the clay. Now this is all something you need to do when it's in plastic state. All right, and as you're working on this, if you feel like it's getting too dry or there's cracks, you can smooth them out. If it's to the point where it's so cracked or so dry you can't, you're gonna need to put spray some water on it or get a wet paper towel and put it on it and then work on this the next day. One last thing I just wanted to remind is that if you have a shape like this, a round shape, and you wanted to change it into something else, all you have to do is get it to the point where you're right here, and then all you have to do is adjust that. So if you wanted it to be a triangle top shape, a triangle shaped piece, all you have to do is pinch that while it's still in that plastic state, pinch that so that it kind of creates a triangle shape, and then finish up your cleaning and your refining. Go ahead and pause it or stop. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do a pinch pot with a foot on it, like these over here. You're just like the other kind of pinch pot, you want to make sure that there's even and consistent walls. Just like you see here, the thickness should be the same throughout the whole thing. In order to get started with this, you'll start the same way you would any other pinch pot. Start with a ball, about 1 pound to 2 pounds, or about the size of a baseball. And whenever you get started, you'll put your thumb in it just like you would with a regular pinch pot. But instead of going all the way down to the bottom, you leave yourself a little leeway to provide for the foot. And I automatically start separating this out so that I know that the majority of the clay that I'm separating out is going to be for the actual pinch part. And then the bottom part that I'm pinching out is the smaller amount of clay, and that's going to be for the foot. Once you've kind of separated and distinguished which part's going to be which, it actually kind of looks like a little mushroom from Super Mario Brothers. But before you get any further, in order to get the foot part though, then you're going to put your thumb back into it from the bottom, and don't forget, don't go all the way through so you poke a hole through it, but put your finger in the bottom, and then you can kind of pinch this out to create your foot. And just pinch and work your way around. They should be about the same consistency as the rest of your piece as well. Okay, and once you've got that established, then you come back around and you start with your pinch pot. Just like before, you start at the bottom third of this, okay, and work your way all the way around. It's super important to start at the bottom third because we don't want to pinch the top and the middle and then get it really tall, and then your hands can't reach down there. Also, that starts to dry out at the top, and you don't want it to dry out and start cracking before you've even had a chance to pinch out any of this bottom. Thin clay dries out faster than thick clay. So if it's thinner at the top, and then it'll start drying out, and you'll hit it with your hand, it'll start cracking. So I'm just going to pinch and move around the whole bottom third of it. And then once I've kind of gotten that finished, then I'm going to move up to the middle part. And I'm going to match the middle part thickness to the bottom third. So I'm going to pinch that out too. I'm also at this point going to start kind of pinch out my opening because I want this to be a little bit wider. So I'm going to start pinching this out as well. I'm not completely pinching the top to the exact thickness, but I'm just pushing a little more pressure on it with my thumb. And I'm working my way around the middle of it and trying to match that consistency. If I feel like it's thin in a spot, then I just move on. I don't pinch on that spot. I just pinch where I feel like it's a little bit thick still and I need to match the consistency, the thickness, I mean. And then you're going to move to the top and you're going to get that rim and move that, pinch and move around, just like you had been doing. And matching the consistency to the middle and the bottom. I like to hold this in my hand because I don't want to put a lot of pressure on this by setting it down. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on the bottom and really mess up that foot. So holding your hand is always the best policy because it cradles the clay. All right, and just like any other pinch pot, once you've kind of gotten your walls to be about consistency with the thickness all the way through, then you want to kind of do the refining part. And this is where you're going to want to kind of take your finger on the outside of this clay and rub it against the clay and also against your thumb on the inside. This gets rid of all those lumps and bumps that your fingers made while pinching it, and it also, like while creating the walls, and it also smooths it out and makes it a nice finished clean look. That looks much nicer and neater. Again, this is the difference between like, you know, a good piece of work, a quality, maybe an A piece of work, to like a of 100%. And you're just going to work this around all the way around. Don't forget about your foot. Make sure you come and do the same thing to your foot and really get out any of those lumps and bumps that you had. all the way around. And don't forget about your rim. By cleaning up this, straightening up this rim, you can do that by holding the walls with your hands to support it and rub your finger along the top of this all the way around. And this kind of also helps get out those wrinkles. You can push the clay where you need it to go. When you do this, as long as you're supporting the walls, it'll kind of push down the clay and make a ridge in there like this. You want to get rid of that ridge, and all you have to do is get rid of that ridge, is kind of like push against it, to the rest of the into the rest of the clay, and that really will get rid of that ridge and make that more even and consistent, nice and clean, really smooth out the edges. So you can see the difference between the part of the edges that have been worked on and then the ones that haven't. You'll do that all the way around to your piece until you get your finished product.